Okay, good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, all of you. I am sharing the screen. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today's topic, what we are going to see is about blood. Okay. So we are in the last class. We have seen about the body fluids. That is the importance of intracellular and extracellular fluid. Okay. So intracellular compartment, extracellular compartment. What are the fluids present in the intracellular compartment and the extracellular compartment? And also we have seen about the constituents, the components of these compartments. So now you are able to see the full screen, that is the slideshow. Okay. So when the slide is not moving or something, if there is any trouble, you please let me know. Okay. So today's class, what we are going to see is about the blood. So what is blood? Why is it important? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me? Very good. It carries oxygen from the lungs to all the parts of the body. Very good. So only it carries only oxygen, or does it carry anything else?
Nutrients, ma'am.
Yes, very good. Nutrients. Okay, so the all the nutrients what you eat, okay, that is through the mouth. It goes through to the gastrointestinal tract or the alimentary canal. It gets digested and it is converted into smaller parts. So after that, what happens? It has to be taken to the different parts of the body. So that is very very important. So the nutrition, the carrying of nutrition and the oxygen. Oxygen is also a nutrient. Okay, so very very important life nutrient is oxygen. Okay, so that is carried only by the blood. Okay, not only the nutrients, the toxic waste materials like carbon dioxide and urea and other metabolic waste components are also taken from the cells to the different parts of the body. So what is blood? It is a connective tissue in the form of fluid. So it is a connective tissue. The only thing is it is in the form of fluid. So it is called by different names. It is called as fluid of life, fluid of growth, fluid of health, and so on. So why it is called as fluid of life? Because it carries the very very essential component of for life, that is oxygen. Oxygen from the lungs. So we inspire air through the nose and it reaches the lungs. So yeah, the blood is transported from the, that is the impure blood is transported from the heart to the lungs for purification. So there is an exchange of gases taking place in the lungs. Okay, it takes up oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide. That is why it is called as fluid of life. Okay, so at the same time it gives away the carbon dioxide to the external environment. Okay, so we are all the cells receive oxygen through the blood, only through the blood, and the carbon dioxide is also eliminated in exchange for oxygen from the body only through the blood. Okay, and it is exhaled out of the body to the external environment. Next, it is called as the fluid of growth. Why it is called as a fluid of growth? Because it carries the nutritive substances. So what is the nutritive substances? um, the food what you take, glucose, amino acids, and all the vitamins, minerals, whatever you take from the mouth. Okay, all these are called the nutritive substances, that is from the digestive tract. And hormones. Okay, hormones are very important ones, which are secreted by the endocrine glands. Okay, so they regulate. Okay, they regulate, they control the activity of different physiological system, and that is why it is called as the fluid of growth. So all these nutritive substances and the hormones are carried by the bloodstream to the different parts of the tissues or cells. Next, it is called as the fluid of health. So it protects the body against many diseases. So how it is protecting the body? The blood carries the immunoglobulins, antibodies. So the antibodies are very very important for the curing of the disease, okay, of any or invasion, the killing of microorganisms when there is an invasion, and also to get rid of the waste products. So if the waste products are accumulated in the body, what will happen? It will result in so many diseases. So all the unwanted substances are excreted out either through the lungs or through the liver or through the kidney. Okay, so I have changed the slide. Are you able to see the slide now? No. Now you are able to see the slide.
Yes.
Okay, so what we are going to study today is about the properties of blood. What is blood? What is the composition of blood? What does the blood contain? What is the color? What is the volume? What is the reaction? The pH and the other the properties. Okay, so what is the color of the blood? Blood is red in color. We all know that, but there is still a difference between the that is the intensity of the color. Okay, you know what the difference between artery and veins? As the blood passing through the arteries are, pure blood. Blood passing through the veins are impure blood. So the arterial blood is scarlet, more reddish in color, whereas the blood traveling through the veins are purple red in color because they carry the toxic substances, that is the carbon dioxide. And the volume, so when you take the volume, the normal adult, the volume of blood in the normal adult is 5 liters. Okay, when you take a newborn baby, the volume is very very small, as the body is also very small, it is only 450 ml. So as the baby grows into a small child and then reaches the adult, okay, at the time of puberty the blood volume will become 5 liters. Okay, so the volume of blood is slightly lesser in female than the male. It is only 4.5 liter in female. And we know in the previous class we studied 8% of the body weight. Is made up of blood. Okay, when you take 70 kg as a normal weight of a human being, adult, 8% of the body weight is made up of blood. And the blood is slightly alkaline, 7.4 pH, and it has got a specific gravity, and it is viscous in nature. It is not like water. They say blood is thickened than water. So they have a specific gravity. They float. Okay, they just don't sink in water. So while the specific gravity ranges from 1.052 to 1.061. You can see that there is a difference between the specific gravity of the blood cells and the plasma. For the blood cells, it is a little more higher, 1.092 to 1.101. So, depending upon the presence of more number of cells, okay, compared to the plasma, by the erythrocyte sedimentation rate. That is a measure in the clinical laboratory, which is used to find out whether there is a person is suffering from any disease. Okay, a decrease or increase in the cell count or the viscosity or the density of the blood indicates a particular disease. Okay, whereas the specific gravity of plasma is 1.022 to 1.026. Okay, so this is very very important, the erythrocyte sedimentation rate. So, can you tell me the instrument that is used to measure the erythrocyte sedimentation rate? Anybody? Can you name the instrument which is used? Hemocytometer illa. There is a small glass instrument. You know what is erythrocyte sedimentation rate? Do you know? See, when you allow the blood to stand, maybe in a test tube or in any other, yes, yeah, Vestagrin, West, yes. Yes, Westergren method. Okay, that is very correct. Okay, so you allow the blood, take the blood in a Westergren tube, okay, or Winthrop tube, and allow it to stand for some time. Okay, so if the presence of the blood cells are more in concentration, what will happen? The cells will sediment fast at a faster rate. Okay, the time taken for the cells to sediment will be faster, okay, than the normal. So we can easily find out what is the nature of the blood cells, okay, depending upon density. Before, in those days, no, they never used to have so much sophisticated devices. They had, with simple devices itself, they were able to understand and diagnose many diseases. Okay, so viscosity of the blood. Blood is more viscous, just like oil. In the oil also you have different types of oil, like kerosene. The kerosene is not viscous. It easily evaporates, isn't it? Ethanol, it evaporates, it is not viscous. Whereas when you take castor oil or any cooking oil, vegetable oil, it is having some viscosity. That is why it is stickier. Okay, it sticks. The same way, blood is also viscous in nature. It is more viscous than water. You know, when there is a blood stain in the hand or something, okay, it is sticky in nature because of the presence of red blood cells and also plasma proteins. See, there is a table given below. You can see the concentrate composition of plasma. So what is plasma? When the blood is taken and it is allowed to settle in a test tube, what will happen? The cells, all the cells will settle down. The cells in the sense RBC, WBC, and the platelets. Okay. So along with the proteins, whatever proteins may be present. What are the proteins present in the blood?
Globulin.
Albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. Yes, correct. So these are the proteins. So they are all heavier in nature. So because of the presence of these cells and the organic compounds, they will settle down. Okay, at the top you will get some clear solution. Okay, so that is called as the plasma. Okay, that is called as the plasma. So you know the plasma. This is the concentration of the plasma. So the cells will settle down. Okay, the cells will settle down, whereas the components present in the plasma will not settle down. They may be present in the plasma. So when you're taking blood for diagnosis, either the plasma or the serum will be taken for diagnosis, clinical biochemistry diagnosis test, okay, of estimating the presence of glucose or amino acids or lipids, lipid profile or enzymes. So many things will be diagnosed by taking the either the plasma or the serum. What is the difference between plasma and serum? How it is collected? Centrifuging. Okay. Anti anticoagulant. Okay. To which? Very good, very good. So add பண்ணா என்ன ஆகும்? Add பண்ணலனா என்ன ஆகும்? Anticoagulant add பண்ணா என்ன ஆகும்? Anticoagulant add பண்ணலனா என்ன ஆகும்? Clot ஆகாது. Very good. Yes, very good. So cells ஓட சேர்த்து RBC, WBC, platelets ஓட சேர்த்து the fibrinogen. Okay, what is involved in clotting? Fibrinogen is involved in clotting. So that will also get clotted, okay, and settle at the bottom. After centrifuging, what you get above the clear solution is called as the serum. But when you add anticoagulant, can you give me some example for anticoagulant?
Heparin.
Heparin, very good. Heparin, EDTA, and so many other compounds can be used as anticoagulants. So when this is added for the clotting factor, that is, it prevents the coagulation of fibrinogen. Okay, so you will get the plasma, okay, including which contains fibrinogen, whereas in the serum you will the solution does not contain fibrinogen. So these are the composition of plasma. You can see 92 to 93% is made up of water. That is the main base. The remaining 7 to 8%, what you can see is organic substances as well as inorganic substances. So, what are the organic substances? The plasma proteins, as you said, albumin, globulin, fibrinogen, amino acids, all the essential amino acids and the non-essential amino acids, carbohydrates, glucose, fats like triglycerides, cholesterol, phospholipids, and some hormones. So, all these can be estimated by taking the plasma. Okay, all these are considered as the clinically important ones for diagnosis of some diseases. So apart from this, you have elements, inorganic substances like sodium, calcium, potassium, magnesium, bicarbonate, chloride, phosphate, iodide, iron, and copper. So these are all very important for the maintenance of homeostasis of the body. So the proteins, amino acids, all these are essential nutrients. Not only they are essential for the as food, okay, they are also very important for the maintenance of the blood. Okay, the nature of the blood. Okay, that is, the concentration of the blood components will be the same throughout the body. It will not differ. Okay, it will be the same throughout the body. So the maintenance of homeostasis depends upon the presence or absence of these organic and inorganic substances. So apart from this, it contains enzymes, non-protein nitrogenous substances. So what are the enzymes? Amylase, carbonic anhydrase, acid phosphatase, alkaline phosphatase, lipase, esterase, protease, transaminase. So all these are, the reaction or these enzymes are catalyzing. Okay, I hope you all know this very well. Apart from this, the ammonia, all these are harmful. Urea, uric acid, hypoxanthine, xanthin, all these are harmful substances or toxic substances which should be eliminated from the body. Okay, non-protein nitrogenous substance apart from urea. Okay, that is the amino acid that get converted into various products, and also the nucleic acids, the end product of amino acid and nucleic acid metabolism, and also creatinine. So antibodies are also antibodies are very important. They are called as immunoglobulins. They act in the defense of the body. So the gases present are oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. So these are the gases present. Okay, so this is the composition of the blood. So you can see a table here. Can you see the slide? I have changed the slide. Are you able to see the slide? Okay. So from the table, you can understand that the different concentration of the important substances in the blood. So the normal concentration of glucose is 100 to 120 milligram per deciliter. So when you take the biochemical test or diagnosis, if the value goes beyond or below this particular normal value, then the person is suffering from some disease. So you should by heart these normal values. Okay, so glucose, you all know it is 100 to 120 milligram per deciliter, but other things also you try to by heart. The normal level of creatinine is zero point 0.5 to 1.5 milligram per deciliter. Cholesterol is up to 200 milligram per deciliter. Above that is, they are obese, or the lipid profile level of cholesterol, triglyceride. No, this is dangerous. Plasma protein should be 6.4 to 8.3 gram per deciliter. Bilirubin 0.5 to 1.5 milligram per deciliter. Bilirubin is metabolized and gets converted into urobilinogen and stercobilinogen. Okay, excreted in the urine and feces. Iron, the concentration of iron is 50 to 150 microgram per deciliter. Copper is 100 to 200 milligram per deciliter. Calcium 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, or 4.5 to 5.5 milliequivalents per liter. Sodium, it is 135 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. Now where the sodium is present, potassium is present, magnesium, chloride, bicarbonate, where and all where these are present. Extracellular fluid, some are present in the extracellular fluid. Okay, these are all present in the extra sodium, chloride, bicarbonate, potassium, magnesium. These are the levels. Okay, potassium 3.5 to 5 milliequivalents per liter, magnesium 1.5 to 2 milliequivalents per liter, chloride 100 to 110 milliequivalents per liter, and bicarbonate 22 to 26 milliequivalents per liter. So this is the normal values of all the basic components of the blood. So this all of you should be by heart with this. Now we will go on to the blood cells. Okay, so what are the blood cells? There are three kind of blood cells. So what are the three kinds of blood cells? Erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes. Erythrocytes are otherwise called as red blood cells. Okay, leukocytes are otherwise called as white blood cells. And then you have platelets or thrombocytes. Recently, you would have heard about the dengue fever, where the platelet count decreases. Okay, the thrombocytes count decreases to a large extent in the dengue fever. Okay, and either the increase, or decrease of the number of erythrocytes, leukocytes, and the blood platelets will lead to some kind of diseases. What happens when WBC cell increases in number? Leukemia, very good. Okay, blood cancer. Similarly, each and everything has got some harmful effects. It should be of a proper number. Okay, the number should be, the concentration should be within the normal limits. If whether it decreases or increases, it will lead to some kind of disease condition. Okay, so these are 9 different functions of the blood. So you all know what are the different functions of the blood. Just we will review the functions. Nutritive function. Why it is nutritive function? It carries nutrition, oxygen. Okay, that is why it is that is a nutritive function. Hormones, etc. Respiratory function. It carries oxygen. Excretory function. It removes the toxic compounds, carbon dioxide, from the cells through the blood. Transport of hormones and enzymes are happening only through the blood. Regulation of water balance. So this is very, very important. Regulation of water as well as acid base balance can take place only because of the presence and the balance of all these inorganic compounds in the blood. Not only the inorganic compounds, plasma proteins also play a very, very important role in the water balance and the acid base balance. Okay, if the components are more in the extracellular fluid, it will be moved to the intracellular fluid, or if it is more in the intracellular fluid, it will be moved to the outside, and so on. Okay, the body temperature is also maintained because of the liquid nature of the blood. Storage function, there's got many storage function. Excess nutritive components are stored, okay, sent to the different parts of the body for storage, for example liver, spleen, etc. Okay, defensive function, it carries antibodies. Okay, so defensive function is also very important. Now we will, before going through the individual cells, okay, we have to study about the plasma proteins. So you have told me that there are three important plasma proteins present. Okay, so we'll have to study everything in detail one by one. First is the serum albumin, next one is the serum globulin, fibrinogen. So you know globulin, immunoglobulin. So immunoglobulins are very, very important for the antibiotic, that is the defensive function of the body, whereas fibrinogen is very important for the the clotting factor, anticoagulant, clotting factor. Okay, hemostasis of the blood. So these are the normal values you can see of plasma proteins. 7.3 gram per deciliter of total proteins. Okay, so this is the range. It can be from 6.4 to 8.3, whereas albumin should be 4.7 gram per deciliter, globulin 2.3 grams per deciliter, and fibrinogen zero point 0.3 grams per deciliter. So these values may change during diseased condition. Okay, that is the antibodies may increase during fever or something. Okay, so they have to be estimated. The total concentration of these proteins have to be estimated by some kind of methods. Okay, where they have to be separated, and then they have to be there are, see the below, there are so many techniques mentioned which can be used for the separation of plasma proteins. One simple method is precipitation method. Okay, so here you can see globulin can be precipitated by using salt. All these things can be precipitated by using some kind of salt. The sodium sulfate can be used to precipitate globulin, whereas you can see the euglobulin. There are two kinds of globulin. Okay, euglobulin, pseudoglobulin. So these are some of the salt. Sodium chloride, magnesium sulfate, ammonium sulfate, and magnesium sulfate can be used for salting out method. Okay, salting out. You can salt out the protein along with these elements. Okay, sodium chloride, etc. Then you have electrophoretic method. By electrophoresis also you can separate the various proteins: albumin, globulin, alpha globulin, beta globulin, gamma globulin, and the fibrinogen. They can be separated by electrophoretic method. So there are other methods of precipitation. Korn's fractional precipitation method. Ultracentrifugation can also be used for separation of these proteins. Gel filtration chromatography can be used. Immunoelectrophoresis also can be used. Now let us move on to the properties of plasma proteins. Okay, so these are the molecular weight. Albumin 69,000. So the molecular weight of proteins is measured in Daltons. Okay, Daltons and kilodaltons. Globulin is 1,56,000. Okay, fibrinogen is 4 lakhs. So the fibrinogen is the heaviest because it is a clotting factor. Okay, so it has got some other properties like oncotic pressure. The presence of the proteins only gives the pressure, osmotic pressure, osmolarity, okay, tonicity of the blood. We have seen no hypotonic solution. What is the nature or behavior of the cells when the pressure increases, when they are immersed in a solution of different concentrations, higher, lower, or equal concentration. Okay, so specific gravity of the protein is 1.026. It also has buffering action. So what can you say, what are the buffers present in the blood? Can you mention some buffers present in the blood? Amino acid can act as buffer, proteins can act as buffer. Okay, so all these can act as buffers. So buffering systems are very, very important to maintain the pH, viscosity, and the homeostatic nature of the blood. Okay, now we will see where the plasma proteins are originating, whether in the embryo stage or in the adult stage. In the embryonic stage, the plasma proteins are synthesized by the some kind of special cells called the mesenchyme cells. Okay, so there is an order in which these proteins can be synthesized. First, the albumin is synthesized, followed by the others. Okay, so they are where are they synthesized? They are synthesized in the mesenchyme cells. Whereas when they become adult, the reticuloendothelial cells of the liver are involved in the synthesis of these proteins. Okay, so not only the reticuloendothelial cells, the proteins can be, plasma proteins can be synthesized from the spleen, bone marrow, and also the disintegrating blood cells and general tissue cells. Okay, whereas the gamma globulins, that is the immunoglobulin antibodies, are synthesized from the B lymphocytes. So this is the site of synthesis. Now we will see the main functions of plasma proteins. So what is the function of plasma protein? They are involved in blood coagulation. So which is involved in blood coagulation? Fibrinogen. Defense mechanism, antibodies. Role in transport. Albumin plays a very, very important role in transport. Okay. Maintenance of osmotic pressure in the blood is, as I told you, know, they maintain the osmotic pressure of the blood. Okay, the tonicity of the blood is maintained by the presence of these plasma proteins. Acid base balance. Okay, in which side, which direction the minerals have to move. Okay, that is based upon the presence of plasma proteins. Viscosity of the blood. Maintenance of viscosity of the blood is because of the presence of plasma proteins. Erythrocyte sedimentation rate, as I told you, that is the rate at which the cells settle to the bottom along with the plasma proteins. Okay, so that will tell you whether the person is in a good state of health, normal state of health, or a disease state of health. The rate in sedimentation, whether it is faster or slower, will tell you whether a person is suffering from a disease. Okay, if it settles faster, the number of proteins are increased in the body. Then suspension stability of red blood cells. Okay, red blood cells remain suspended. Okay, they remain suspended in the blood. You can see, it can flow through the blood, and they remain in the suspended state. Why it is present in the suspended state? Because of the presence of these plasma proteins are bigger in nature when you compare it with the cells. Okay, so because of this presence of plasma proteins, the cells, RBC cells, can remain suspended in the blood. And there are the production of trephone substances. Trephone substances are sometimes helpful in the there is a defense mechanism of the body. They also play a very important role in reserve proteins. So reserve proteins, what do you mean by reserve proteins? In terms of emergency, okay, they act as reserve proteins, giving the nutrition, okay, nutrition to the body. Now you can see this is a particular table which shows the variation in the level of plasma protein. Okay, so the different proteins are given: total protein, albumin, globulin, fibrinogen, and the albumin to globulin ratio. Okay, so what happens when there is excess condition when increases and condition when decreases? So when the total protein concentration increases, it is called as hyperproteinemia, whereas when it decreases, it is called as hypoproteinemia. So when does this happen? Hyperproteinemia can happen during dehydration. That is, all the water is lost in the body, and only the proteins are present. Because of the loss of water, the concentration of these protein increases. Or during hemolysis. Okay, hemolysis, what happens? The lysis of the blood cells. So the blood cell gets lysed, the RBC, WBC, they all get lysed. Okay, so during this condition also, the plasma protein level increases. When there is acute infections like hepatitis, nephritis, that is affecting the liver and the kidney, then also the plasma protein level increases enormously. Then, when there is excess of glucocorticoids or respiratory distress syndrome, during leukemia, during rheumatoid arthritis, alcoholism, all these conditions will lead to hyperproteinemia. Whereas diarrhea, loss of, along with the loss of water, the protein also will be lost. Hemorrhage. Okay, that is, hemorrhage means that is when there is a loss of blood through loss of blood during injury, whether external injury or internal injury. then the person can suffer from loss of protein. Okay, it will lead to hyperproteinemia. Burns, in the same way, burns, that particular area where it burns, the protein gets affected. Pregnancy, okay, pregnancy, the first test they will look for pregnancy is the presence of albumin in the urine. Okay, so that is all that is measured. So during pregnancy also the proteins are lost in the urine, so hypoproteinemia results. Prolonged starvation, during starvation, cirrhosis of the liver or some other chronic infections also will lead to hypoproteinemia. Albumin, so albumin also can become less during dehydration. Same thing. Okay, glucocorticoids and cardiac failure. Whereas during malnutrition, cirrhosis of the liver, burn, hypothyroidism, nephrosis, and excessive intake of water, the level of albumin can decrease. The globulin can increase during infections. Okay, all the infections, that is for the protection or the defense mechanism. Cirrhosis of the liver, chronic infection, nephrosis, arthritis, etc. Whereas it can decrease during respiratory disease, distress, emphysema, acute hemolytic anemia. Okay, whether it is acute anemia or hypogammaglobulinemia or some kidney diseases, glomerulonephritis. Fibrinogen level can increase during infections. Okay, infections, because during infection what will happen, the microorganisms will invade the body so the blood will secrete more and more of the blood, that is the granulocytic cells. Okay, basophil, eosinophil, and other polymorphonuclear lymphocytes. So they will all secrete this, and they will go and attack the microorganisms and engulf them and destroy them. So what will happen, clotting will happen. So during acute infection, rheumatoid arthritis, glomerulonephritis, myocardial infarction, stroke, and trauma, the level of fibrinogen increases, whereas it decreases during liver dysfunction and the use of steroids. Okay, those people who are anabolic bodybuilding steroids, use of phenobarbital. Okay, during this condition, the fibrinogen level decreases. So A by G ratio is a very important ratio. Okay, I mean, or the thing is calculated. There is a globulin. Only the albumin can be measured. Globulin can be measured by but subtracting the total protein minus albumin. You will get the level of globulin. Okay, so the ratio of albumin will be more. That is, A by G ratio will be more during hypothyroidism, excess of glucocorticoids, hypogammaglobulinemia, intake of high carbohydrate or protein diet. It can decrease during liver dysfunction and nephrosis. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. Red blood cells. So what are red blood cells? So we'll have to study the individual cells um, one by one. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets. So what is the importance of red blood cells? It carries oxygen. Okay, so oxyhemoglobin. So the color given to the red blood cells is because of the presence of hemoglobin. So the presence of hemoglobin gives the red color to the cells. Okay, so what is the specificity of the RBC cells? They are non-nucleated. They do not contain any nucleus. That is very important. Okay, it is you can see the shape of the RBC. Okay, it is in the shape of a donut. Okay, donut, or you can say one vada shape, or you can see this dumbbell shape. Okay, the shape of a donut. Okay, or you can say a dumbbell shape or a biconcave. This is a biconcave shape. Okay, so they do not contain nucleus. So what is the other name given for RBC? It is erythrocytes. So the coloring, they are red in color because of the presence of the pigment called as hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is the iron containing globin, where globin is the protein part and heme is the iron containing porphyrin ring. Okay, iron containing porphyrin ring, that is very important. So there's a difference in the color between the arterial blood and the vein, blood in the vein. Okay, blood in the vein is a little violet in color, whereas the one in the artery is a scarlet red, darker red in color. Okay, so they carry gases. Okay, they transport both oxygen and carbon dioxide. When they carry oxygen, they are called as oxyhemoglobin, and when they carry carbon dioxide, they are called as carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, so when you compare it with the other cells, RBC is little larger. Okay, when you compare with the size with the other cells, RBC cells are larger in size when compared with the WBC and the platelets. So now let us see the normal value. So there is a difference between the adults and the males. So in general, the normal value ranges from 4 to 5.5 million cells per cubic millimeter of blood. Okay, for male it is 5 million, and for female it is 4.5 million, little lesser, because the RBC cells are lost during menstrual cycle, etc. Okay, so that is why the RBC cells, number of RBC cells are lesser in female than males. Normal shape, I told you, it is having a disc shape where it is bulging at the sides and it goes inside like a concave. Okay, like a concave, biconcave, two sides bulging. Okay, so two sides you can see from the sideways and like this, no, like a urundu vada. Okay, or you can see dumbbell shape, or you can say a donut. Okay, the inner side is a little inside. See, it goes like a depression. So you can see the diameter of the outer radius is 2.2 microns, and the inner one is only 1 micron. Okay, so the total diameter is, see, from here to here it is 7.2 micron in diameter. So this is there is a difference in the thickness at the side, at the periphery, and the center. Okay, that is why it is called as a biconcave shape. And surface area, it is amounting to 120 square microns, and the total volume is 85 to 90 cubic microns. Now let us see the properties of the red blood cells. The red blood cells, when they're allowed to stand, it will obtain this particular shape called as a Rulex formation. That means all the red blood cells too will clump together in the form of a pile of coins. Okay, that is why it is called as a Rulex formation. Okay, and it has got a specific gravity of 1.092 to 1.0101 more than the others. Okay, more than the others. The packed cell falls, I told erythrocyte, that is erythrocyte sedimentation rate, erythrocyte. So it means this is more involved in the sedimentation. Okay, sedimentation rate. So the packed cell volume is the hematocrit. So packed cell volume is when the whole blood is taken and allowed to stand in a test tube. What will happen? All the cells will settle at the bottom, and the plasma alone will be staying as a clear fluid in the top. So this particular thing is called as the hematocrit. Okay, and it is suspension of the RBC in the blood is uniform throughout the body. So this suspension, this is called as the suspension stability, and this can be maintained only because of the presence of plasma proteins. Okay, now what is the lifespan of the RBC? You all know that it lives only for 120 days. After every 120 days, they are, they die or they get hemolyzed. Okay, hemolyzed, and what will happen is the fate of the RBC is here, see, shown here. After every 120 days, new RBC cells are generated. Okay, generated by the reticuloendothelial system or the bone marrow. Okay, now what happens to the old RBC? When it becomes 120 days of old, okay, so they are getting destructed in the spleen. So it undergoes destruction. So what happens? It releases hemoglobin. RBC cell will release hemoglobin, and rest of the RBC cell will be degraded. So what happens to the hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is made up of heme and globin, where heme is the iron containing compound, and globin is the protein containing compound. Okay, so the iron is removed and it combines with the protein to form a ferritin, and it is stored and used for further use. Okay, stored for used for further future use. The globin, the protein part, okay, it becomes a part of the protein pool of the body. Again, they are also stored or broken down or reused. Okay, so it contains porphyrin. So iron, porphyrin. The porphyrin is a ring, five membrane ringed structure in which four porphyrin rings are joined together, and in the center the iron will be occupying the position. Okay, so that is the porphyrin ring. So what happens to the porphyrin ring? They get metabolized, and that only gets converted to bilirubin. So bilirubin is further in the liver. It becomes either conjugated or unconjugated. Okay, would have heard about conjugated bilirubin and unconjugated bilirubin. It gets conjugated with some other compounds. Okay, and then they are excreted. So what will happen? This during the conversion, during the metabolism reactions, they will be converted into stercobilin and urobilin. Okay, stercobilin is the coloring compound of the feces, and urobilin is the coloring compound of the urine. Okay, so stercobilin, stercobilinogen, and urobilin, urobilinogen. The rest of it is converted as a bile. Okay, so the bile is excreted. Okay, that is why it is giving the color. Okay, the bile is having a yellow color. So the synthesis of the bile is from the bilirubin. Okay, what are the functions of RBC? You all know that is first function is carrying transport of oxygen. The second function is transport of carbon dioxide. Okay, so when it combines with oxygen, it is called as oxyhemoglobin. When it combines with carbon dioxide, it is called as carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, so it shows a very important function, that is the buffering action of the blood is because of the presence of RBC. And we will always also be studying about the blood group determination. So RBC cells are very important in the antigen and antibody present inside and outside of the RBC cells. Okay, which is very important for the determination of the blood groups. So how the blood group can be determined by from a person. Okay. Now what are the conditions when the RBC count becomes more or lesser? Okay, RBC count can become higher or lesser in normal people as well as during pathological condition. Okay, in normal people or during pathological condition. In normal, there is when in normal condition mean day to day physiological variation. Okay, day to day physiological variation or without any pathological event, the RBC can be seen in increased level. It can differ in the age, sex, altitude, and during exercise and emotional conditions and the environmental temperature, and also after meals it can differ. Okay, so the decreased level of RBC is called as polycythemia. So the decreased level of RBC is called as polycythemia, whereas uh, increased level is called as increased level of RBC is called as polycythemia. So you can see at birth RBC count is 8 to 10 million cubic millimeter of blood. After 10 days, the count decreases. Why? Because of the destruction of the, the newborn babies will suffer from physiological jaundice. Okay, physiological jaundice. So during this condition, the after a few days, the number of RBC cells will be destroyed. Okay, then later on when the infants grow, as they grow they will pick up. Okay, the normal level of the RBC will be maintained. So initially they'll have some physiological jaundice in the, not everybody, for those people, or even normally you can see the newborn baby will decrease in weight and then only they'll put on weight. The sex, as we know, the male have more number of RBC than the female. Altitude, hypoxia. You can see during altitude, the number of the oxygen level will become less. So they will undergo experience hypoxia. So this hypoxia will stimulate the kidneys. So kidneys are very important for hematopoiesis or erythropoiesis. Hematopoiesis is the general process of the production of blood cells. Erythropoiesis is the production of RBC cells. So this hypoxia, lesser level of oxygen in the blood, will stimulate the kidney to produce erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is a very important substance, okay, which stimulates the bone marrow to produce RBC. Okay, so high altitude, the decreased oxygen supply to the tissues will stimulate erythropoiesis. Then during muscular exercise also there is a variation. Okay, emotional condition also there is a variation there. When there is a temperature increase, okay, that will also lead to the these are all the physiological variations. Okay, so the RBC count may decrease when during sleep, when there is a change in the height, barometric pressure, and also during pregnancy. See here, when there is a emotional distress or emotional condition, stress, and also muscular exercise, what will happen? Sympathetic activity will increase. So when the sympathetic activity increases, there is an increase in the secretion of adrenaline. Adrenaline is the hormone, you all know, that is the fright, flight, and fear. So this is the hormone. So when the adrenaline level increases, it will contract the spleen and this will release the RBC. Okay. So what will happen? There is a this will stimulate the release of RBC. So there is a decrease in the blood count, RBC count, when a person is present in a high altitude or during sleep and pregnancy. What are the pathological variation? So in pathology, what is the variation? That is the there is an abnormal increase in the RBC count, polycythemia. Okay, there is a more than 7 million cubic millimeter of the body. So primary polycythemia, persistent increase in RBC count above 14 million. So when it goes to more than 7 million, okay, it reaches up to 14 million cubic per cubic millimeter. Okay, then this is called as primary polycythemia. Okay, so it will also result in if it is severe, it goes to secondary polycythemia, where the person will experience some respiratory distress like emphysema, congenital heart disease, okay, some other condition in the right obstruction of the right ventricle, and the blood flow to the lungs get obstructed, carbon monoxide poisoning, and when he's suffering from some other poisoning like phosphorus or arsenic, hemorrhage, okay, all these are called as the will lead to polycythemia. Okay, so the increased level of RBC is called as polycythemia. Okay, when the level of RBC decreases, what is the condition called as
Anemia.
anemia? Very good. So abnormal decrease in RBC count is called as anemia, and most probably it is seen in the women. Okay, women, because always there is a blood loss. Okay, monthly blood loss during periods, menstrual period, and during pregnancy. Okay, and also because of the nutritive condition, nutrition, that is not consuming nutritive food. Okay, it will lead to the case called as anemia. Okay, so there are different types of anemia, different conditions which we will be studying in detail later. Okay, anemia is a separate topic which we are going to see, but there are different types of anemia: pernicious anemia, megaloblastic anemia, and so on. Okay, so that we will see in another chapter. Okay, now the RBC cell, there are difference in the size of the RBC. Some may be smaller in size and some may be bigger in, as the name says, no, microcytes. Microcytes na chinna size, chinna, the RBC cell size will be smaller. Macrocytes, they are bigger in size. So when they are seen, these are all not normal. Okay, they are present only in the abnormal condition. Okay, in the normal condition, the size, as we have seen, it is 7.2 micron in diameter. Okay, but when the size decreases below this, it is because of iron deficiency anemia, or because of forced breathing for a long time, or increase in the osmotic pressure of the blood. Okay, so the RBC can become bigger in size during megaloblastic anemia and decreased osmotic pressure of the blood. And there is also another condition called as anisocytes, which is seen in pernicious anemia. Okay, and you all know the shape of the red RBC cell also differs in certain pathological conditions, like shrinkage. Shrinkage, when the RBC cell shrinks, no, when it is kept in a hypertonic medium, it is called as crenation. We have seen on the tonicity of the cells. Then when they obtain the globular form, when they are kept in hypotonic solution, they will get a globular form by absorbing, okay, absorbing the liquid from the external solution, called as spherocytosis. Then they can also take the shape of elliptical shape. Okay, in some kind of anemia, they can take the shape of called as elliptocytosis. Then sickle cell anemia. The sickle. Sickle is a tool which is used by the farmers. Okay, sickle shape in the shape of a curved one. Okay, in the sickle cell anemia people, you can see this. Then poikilocytosis, unusual shape. Okay, something different like a shape of a hammer or a flask or some other unusual shape. Okay, so they can also take the shape of a comma, that is punctate basophilism. So the striated appearance can be seen, or comma-like appearance can be seen during some kind of poisoning like the lead poisoning. Then ring-shaped cells, rings or twisted shapes of RBC cells also can be seen, or you can see a ring shape, that is called as a goblet ring in certain types of anemia. Okay, like next you have Howell Jolly bodies. In certain types of anemia, some nuclear fragments are present. Usually, the RBC cells are non-nucleated. If some nuclear cells fragments are present in the ectoplasm, they are called as the nuclear fragments are called as Howell Jolly bodies. Okay, so this is about the uh,